Welcome, everyone. I am so glad that you could join us today for another Spotlight program. Today, we're going to be highlighting Science Online. My name is Lisa. I'm with the Tampa Hillsborough County Public Library, and I'm joined today by my pal Shannon. Shannon's going to be helping us keep an eye on the questions box as they come in. Shannon will keep an eye on that for us as we go along, and then after the program, we'll have a Q&A so that we can hopefully answer all of your questions live while we're on the air. We're going to jump right into our content today, and we are going to start with where you can find science online. So, as with many of our things, you are going to start right at the library's website. So just go to hcplc.org, and then you're going to go to services. That's towards the top of the page. And once you click on services, you'll go ahead and click on kids. So this is a resource that we have that's really geared towards students, school age kids, from most grades, actually, this would cover. But we kind of have all of our kid-friendly resources gathered together there. There are other ways that you can get to this. You can get to it through the Learning and Research tab and just looking it up by name, or you can get to it by going to hcplc.org/kids. So if you remember that URL, type that in, that'll take you directly to the kids page. So once you get to the kids page, you're going to scroll down to where it says homework help. So once you're in that general area, you're going to see a lot of our different resources and databases that we have there. So they're all kind of clustered together for that homework help category. So this may or may not be something that you need specifically for homework help, but it sure supports anything you're doing in school for extra work, for science fairs, for homeschooling, that kind of thing. Click on that Science Online or go to hcplc.org/homework help. Like I said, there are a ton of different ways to get to this. So if you poke around even just a little bit in our resources, I guarantee you'll find our Science Online tool. So once you're there, you're going to be right on that Science Online homepage, and it's going to look like a lot of other resources where you have your basic toolbar at the top there with a search function and a couple of different tabs for options. So today we're going to go over like the big things that you'll see on the homepage there. We're going to explore that a little bit just with the presentation. And then once we kind of get through the mechanics of how to find things and how to save things, then we'll actually pull up the website today and pull up an experiment that I've bookmarked, and we're gonna try it out together and see how that works. So some of the homepage highlights that you'll see on the main page are the e-learning modules. That's gonna be great if you're looking to maybe do a little bit of extra work for a particular school subject, or if maybe you're working on some homeschool projects. The e-learning modules are going to cluster a bunch of different lessons or activities under a same topic together. So kind of like you would have one big category that you look at during a semester or part of the school year, it'll have multiple projects that fall under that module. There's going to be a section for interactive experiments and featured content. The featured content is going to have things on there like different people that they'll highlight, or different activities that are based on maybe a current season or a theme. You can also browse this by resource. So if you know that you're not looking for any generic information, you specifically need maybe some diagrams or some tables and data, you can go right to that section and pull up just that information so that you're not scrolling through a bunch of stuff that's just not going to apply to you. But you'll also be able to click on experiments and start searching that way as well. You can browse by topic. So if you just want to go by whatever school subject you're working on or that you may want to explore a little bit more, you can do it that way. I've got a quick alphabetical listing there. There's so many more there. So pretty much any school subject you can think of is going to be covered under this. If you want to find these categories again on any of these pages and you can't quite remember how to find them, if you just hover your mouse over that Browse tab at the top, it's going to pop up all these options no matter where you're at. So what if you're finding a bunch of things and maybe you want to save them and come back to them later and then weed them out then? So gather up a bunch of stuff and then kind of filter it out later on. You can save that as you go along, and you can either save the whole search. So if you put in very specific search parameters while you're looking things up, you can save that so that you can search for that same type of thing again. Or you can save the specific article or experiment or the specific resource that you found. If you do want to save as you go along, that's going to be saved in that little My Research folder in the top right-hand corner. And if you want to do this, this is the time when they would ask you to sign up for an account so that it has something to save it to. It's free, doesn't cost anything, it's easy peasy. Whenever you click on that, it's going to ask you to either sign into your account if you already have one, or it'll ask you to create an account. So there are different options there depending on what you're comfortable with. You can create a dummy account that doesn't even have a real email address. That's totally fine, just as long as you remember what it is when you want to go log back in. Once you do that, it'll ask you if you're a patron or a student, just kind of get an idea of what kind of information you might be looking for in the future or saving. You'll create that username and password and create the account. Easy as that. And of course, if you're a parent, this is the ideal way to do it. All right, so next thing we're going to look at real quick is curriculum tools. So curriculum tools is another tab that you're going to see at the top of the page, and it's broken down into two areas. So really depending on who's looking for the information, they're going to give you a little bit of a different option depending on if you're a student looking for an information or if you're a teacher, educator, parent looking for information, because you need different things when you're searching this. So it kind of easily breaks it down by that. The very first topic that comes up is the straightforward example of how that search will give you different things. So under the tools for students, it gives you tips on avoiding plagiarism, as in, what you should not do and what you can do instead to document what you're trying to show that you've learned. Whereas under the tools for educators, it gives you tips on preventing plagiarisms. So what kind of guidance you can give the students and what kind of tips that you can give to them so that they can save that information and include it in their reports without accidentally plagiarizing. So just gives it from those two different perspectives and wraps that information up in a way that makes sense for the person that's using it. So you can kind of see how this tool is great for teachers, educators to use themselves when you're developing curriculum for the kids, or if you are the student that's looking for information. It's going to work for both of you, and it's going to have that information packaged up in a way that makes sense for you to use. So back on our main page, we're going to look for a specific experiment to look at next. So if you just hover your mouse over the Browse button, and it's going to pull this set of options up. We already talked about some of those, but this kind of gives you a bigger picture of what pops up under the Browse button. On the right-hand side, under Resources, you're just going to click on Experiments, and that'll bring up all of the options. Once all those experiments pop up, there's tons of them. They're just going to be listed directly in alphabetical order by the name of the experiment. And that's a fun way to browse it if you're not really sure what you want to do, or if it doesn't really matter what subject it's in. Sometimes it's fun to just scroll through all of them. But if you're looking for something a little bit more specific, I would recommend setting some filters on that search. So once you have all the experiments pulled up, you can filter it first by either interactive experiments, and those are virtual ones. They're all online, so you're going to click through and do that experiment on your computer. You don't need any supplies, you don't need any tools, you don't need a lab or a lab coat or any of that. It's all right on the computer. Or you can filter it by printable experiments. So in this case, it's something that might need more supplies, or it might need, it'll give all the information on like the safety things that you might need to consider. But those are going to be ones that you print out, take them to your kitchen or to your school lab, and you work on them there. So that's how I would filter it first as a basic filter, because it's really going to narrow down your options if you're doing it on the computer or in a lab. Really depends on which direction you want to go. Once you have that in place, you can filter it by how long the experiment takes. So maybe you want a short one that you can definitely finish and wrap up in less than an hour. So something you could do within a class. Filter by that. Or maybe you want to filter it by group size. Is this an experiment that you're going to do with one person, you're going to do by yourself? Is this a small group activity where a couple folks are going to get together and work on the experiment? Or is this something that's really designed to be done by a whole class? You can filter those based on that kind of participation, how many people are going to participate in it. A few other filters on there: supervision. How much supervision does this experiment need? Can this be done by any student without any adult help at all? Is this something that might need just a little bit of guidance while you're working on it? Or is this really something that needs, for safety consideration, needs an adult there the whole time, kind of guiding that? So filter those out, filter it by age, grade level, and whatever categories you might need is going to be a great way to narrow down the tons of experiments that you're going to find in here. So I've given you the cheat sheet of how we're going to get to that information and find those experiments. I'm going to ask Miss Shannon to come on camera with me real quick, because I think I might ask her to be my assistant. Miss Shannon.
Yes.
Would you maybe have a calculator on your phone available?
I do.
Okay, because I think I'm going to pull up an experiment that might need to use a calculator. So there's going to be a calculator. I'm going to pull up one of those virtual experiments that don't need any tools. But just to make it easy to stop me from having to switch between screens while we're doing this, I'm going to ask Ms. Shannon to handle the numbers for me.
Oh, God, that's dangerous.
I'm on our library homepage, hcplc.org. So we're going to go right to services and over to kids. So this is the kids page. It's got tons of stuff on there, activities, and we're going down to the homework help. I'm going to click right on that Science Online, log in with my library card number and PIN, and voila, we are here on the home page. So this kind of gives you an idea of what the whole page looks like together. Tons and tons of stuff, but I already saved the experiment that I think I want to work on today. So remember where we had our little saved stuff up there, the My Research. I'm going to go right there, and we are going to do an experiment on the density of fluids. So like I said, this is one of the more interactive experiments. This is one that can be done completely online. And I'm going to zoom in here because I realize that screen is probably teeny tiny if you're watching this at home. So let me get everything zoomed in here. So the first thing that you're going to see on these interactive experiments is this box here in the middle. It's going to have an introduction that gives you an overview of what we're talking about in the experiment. It's going to tell you what the topic is, what the basic scientific principle is, all that core information about what we're looking at. And then it'll kind of set up the idea of the experiment, as in what we're looking for, what we're trying to calculate. And it gives you, if there's like a formula involved, it'll give you that information right here. So in this case, we're looking at the density of fluids, and the formula for that is density is an object's mass divided by its volume. We've got that here. And it'll give you a description, details on how that works. This next tab over here gives you the materials. Now, in our case, we're doing this all online. It's the materials are virtual, and we'll show you how that looks in a minute. But in theory, you could do this experiment hands-on, and you could substitute actual fluids for these virtual ones. So it's nice that they include that material breakdown there. Then the next tab that we see is the instructions. This is the detailed step-by-step information for how to do the experiment. So I always recommend you read through it first, just so that you kind of understand your order of operations and make sure that you have everything ready and that you know what you're going to be clicking on, because sometimes it can be tricky clicking between the instructions and the experiment. So go ahead and give that a good read through. There is an option for audio down here if you would like it to read that out loud from the screen. That is an option. It's a little bit of a robotic sounding narration. It can be a little bit tricky. So let me see if I can play one. Yeah, I don't think that's going to play through very well on the broadcast, but yeah, it's a little bit of a robot lady reading the words in order like this. All right, so we're going to jump in and we're going to click this start button. And now we have our experiment set up. So for this one, we are going to start, like the instructions said, we're going to measure how much the first beaker weighs. So this first beaker weighs 60 grams. So we're going to type that down here in the table, and we are going to save it. So with most of these experiments, the virtual experiments they have, you want to hit that save button after each thing that you do. Now we're going to take our second beaker and we'll weigh it. And that one is 60.59 grams. And we'll save that number. We'll put our next beaker up, beaker number 3, and that one weighs 59.85. We'll save that. Okay, so we have our empty beakers weighed. Now we need to find the weight of the, or the mass of the beaker and the liquid, so the combined weight. So we'll take our empty beaker and we are going to pour 50 milliliters of this first fluid into the empty beaker. So empty beaker plus 50 milliliters of fluid is 101 grams. And again, what are we going to do? We're going to save that. All right, so we're ready for our second beaker. We've got our second beaker, and we're going to pour 50 milliliters of fluid, number 2, into the second beaker. All right, and that's 127.09 grams. And we save. All right, third one. Third empty beaker. We are pouring 50 milliliters of fluid number 3. And that is 105.35 grams. All right, so we're going to save. All right, so it's been a minute since I read those instructions. So I remembered that I was supposed to do all this, but now I don't remember what I was supposed to do next. So I'm going to come over here to this little information button in the bottom right-hand corner. I'm going to click on that information button and that pulls this back up. So we can go back to the instructions and kind of figure out where we're at and what we do next. So we have found the mass of the beaker that is filled up with the 50 milliliters of fluid. Now, we've recorded this in table 1, we've saved, All right, so now we need to do some subtraction. That makes sense. We are subtracting to find out how much the fluid alone weighs, because we can't just pour the fluid on the scale, right? All right, so we are going to click here on resume and go back. So to find the mass of the liquid, since we can't just do that without a container, we're going to subtract the container from the mass of the beaker and the liquid. So Ms. Shannon, could you calculate for me 101 minus 60?
41.
41. All right. And we are going to save. And now we're going on to the next one down. And we are going to take 127.09 minus 60.59.
66.5.
66.5. All right, we're going to save that one. And now we're going to take 105.35 minus 59.85.
45.5.
45.5. All right, we are saving as we go. We have saved that. So now we have to do our formula. Do you guys remember the formula that we had at the beginning that we looked at in the instructions? It was density equals mass divided by volume. So we're going to have that to go. The mass divided by volume. Let's go back to our table. So our mass is 41 for this first one. So 41 is the mass. How much is our volume? Do you remember how much we poured in? It was 50 milliliters. So mass divided by volume is 41 divided by 50. What is the result if we divide 41 by 50?
0.82.
0.82. Okay, we're going to save that. All right, so what's our next one? We've got 66.5 for our mass. Our volume was 50.
1.33.
1.33. All right. And now we have 45.5 and 50.
0.91.
0.91. Okay. So we've saved that. Now, Ms. Shannon is my wonderful calculator right now. If you're doing this without your handy assistant nearby, there is a little calculator button down here on your screen. It pulls up a separate screen like this to do your calculations. So what are we going to do next? Let's look at the analysis. So this gives you the questions that you're asking while you're doing the calculations. And then we can look for our answers. So there is a chart that showed up earlier that showed the different mystery substances. See if we can get that here. There we go. Here's our chart. So sorry, the chart is down here. So these are our answers here. This is the chart. So 87 grams is isopropyl rubbing alcohol. So our first mystery substance with 82. Did I look at that right? Oh no, 82. What do we have? We might have been off by a decimal here or there. That's okay. Our next one came out to 133. Let's see what we have on here. Oh, we don't have any of these on here yet. So we might have to go back and check our math, but that's okay. Let's see what we have here. 91. 91 is vegetable oil. That may vary slightly. Okay, so it looks like our last one is definitely vegetable oil. Our second one is, our second one is possibly corn syrup. And our first one is possibly rubbing alcohol. So that is what the table says those substances have a density of. This is what our math came out as. And let's check our answer sheets here. So yep, we have rubbing alcohol, corn syrup, and vegetable oil. So we got it. We did get it. So it shows you here that there are percentage margins of error, so that if something's off by that's 1 point there, that can give you that information. So we just did our experiment. We were able to use Ms. Shannon's calculations to figure out what these 3 mystery substances were. So this is just one example of a quick experiment that you can do to reinforce a learning subject. So it can either be used, this one could be used to reinforce math learning. It could be used to reinforce a chemistry lesson or a physics lesson. The options are wide open. So this is called a chemistry experiment, but chemistry has lots of math and physics tied in. So we love that, and we love having all of these different fun options. So you see here, this was one of my saved experiments. If you were maybe using this for a school report where you were writing it down, you might have to cite your sources. There is a quick and easy way to do that. If you're maybe a high school student working on a report and you're learning all about how to do citations for college, you click right on there and it's going to give you the different types of citations, the different formats that are available, so you can copy and paste those right in. All right, let me pull up this again. So I've got my PowerPoint pulled back up, and I hope that the folks at home have been busy asking questions, because we're going to be wrapping up our program here very shortly. So get those questions typed in if you have not already. And while you're typing away, I am going to go to our next screen here and tell you a little bit about something else that you might think. So if you signed up for this program, I'm assuming you didn't just sign up for it just to learn about any resource that might come up. I suspect that you signed up for it to specifically learn about Science Online or science-related resources. If you're doing these kinds of experiments at home or at school, you know that sometimes you need some special tools to do experiments. And with the library, we have this category of stuff that you can check out called Realia. And Realia, what that is 3D models, educational tools, physical objects that you can check out from the library. So there are tons and tons of different types of things that you can check out, but some of the ones that are most relevant to today's topic is you can check out like microscopes and slides. You could check out telescopes. So those are some really fun science learning tools that you can check out from the library. You're just gonna pop on our website to look for those. I have the QR code up on the screen right now, but if you're just browsing on the website and you can't remember how to get to it, you can get to it through the Books tab and scroll down to under the Books and More, scroll down to the 3D objects, or just type it into that search box. So check that out. I encourage you. Realia is currently housed at 2 different locations. There's a collection at the John F. Germany Library downtown, and there's a collection in the eastern part of the county at the Seffner Mango Library. Realia does have to be checked out and returned to those specific libraries because they have the special shelving and storage for those items. So we want to make sure those get taken care of and are ready to be checked out again. So currently those are the 2 locations that have that, but you can always browse on the website and kind of bookmark those so that when you go over there, you know what you want to check out and what's available there. So check that out. And without further ado, it is time for the Q&A. Get those questions in if you haven't already. Ms. Shannon's going to pop those up and let me know when those are ready to look at. We have on the contact page here, if you're having trouble finding any of these resources that we talked about today or getting into it, you can get help from us on our website, hcplc.org/contact. that has all of our information, including our phone number, 813-273-3652, or just click on that Ask a Librarian button and text or chat with us to get that information. So Ms. Shannon, what do we have coming up from the folks? What do they want to know?
How long can you keep the science equipment for once it's checked out?
Good question. So we can, I believe it's for all of the 3D objects, but they're going to be for 21 days at a time. And I don't believe they can be renewed. Let me see if I have a note for myself on here. Sometimes I make a quick note to myself for that. So yes, that's correct. No renewals on those. They're for 21 days at a time though.
Okay. And do the projects on the science, in the science pages, do they change or are they the same projects?
So they don't change often. It's not something where, you know, every couple of weeks they have a new set of things on there. So what's on there is going to stay on there. It's not going to drop off, but they do periodically add things as new resources are published. So it does grow, but it's not something that grows fast. So I wouldn't expect to see a new item in there every time you log in.
And for a new person that's just getting into this, is there something that you would recommend that they try out first, whether they're a teen or a parent?
Yeah, it really depends. I would always start with the subject that you're most interested in. So narrow it down by the subject that you most want to look at, and then kind of get an idea for it by how much you're able to do in terms of equipment. So if you're really not set up with tools and space to do it, try the virtual ones like we demonstrated today.
And that's it, Ms. Lisa.
Awesome. Well, if you have any questions later on, get in touch with us. We would love to answer that. Our next spotlight is coming up on March 29th. We're going to be looking at the Libby app. Some of you might have heard that we are getting ready to transition from the Overdrive app fully to the Libby app. The Overdrive app is going away and will be no more, but fear not. The Libby app is wonderful. There are lots of really cool things that you can do with it that you can't even do with the Overdrive app. And it's made by the same company, so it'll still be very, very familiar. And I look forward to showing you some of the tips and tricks and things that you can do with the Libby app. I see I left my button on there for today's program, so that is not coming up. That is happening right now, unless you have a time traveling device. And if you do have that time traveling device, reach out to us. I would love to do a program on that as well with you as the specialist. All right, well, thank you, Ms. Shanna. Thank you, folks at home. We will see you next time. Bye, friends.
Bye.